A few announcements here to start. As far as COVID goes, COVID continues to affect the community although there's a lot fewer cases than we've had in the past. Cases have declined, but I encourage everyone to continue to take the appropriate precautions. From the Department of Health, there have been 8 rabies-related bite exposures in June. A recent incident in Ticonderoga was with a gray fox, which attacked 3 individuals who are under rabies treatment at this time. So I would encourage everyone to be wary of animals that are acting strange, and remember that wild animals are indeed wild. Report any suspicious animals to DEC. Also, the county reports 25 cases of anaplasmosis, which is a tick-borne disease, and 41 cases of Lyme disease, only 2 months into the tick season. So again, be wary. At this time, I would like to have a resolution and a proclamation for the Ticonderoga Historical Society. This August marks the 125th anniversary of the Ticonderoga Historical Society. It's a remarkable organization, full of knowledgeable and dedicated staff under the leadership of William Dahlback. Treasure trove of information, whether it's genealogical or information concerning our region. Town of Ticonderoga is excited to issue this resolution and proclamation. So we'll have Bill Dahlback up with Ms. LaPointe, and I will read the resolution and do the proclamation. Join me up here. I'll sit down
Behind Mark?
right here. We'll come right over here. So, I will read the proclamation. Whereas the Ticonderoga Historical Society was organized in 1897 and chartered by the New York State Board of Regents in 1909, and whereas the Ticonderoga Historical Society advances the preservation and interpretation of history through collections, exhibits, programs, and community outreach with a focus on the historical, education, scientific, and social aspects of the Adirondack Mountains, Lake Champlain, and Lake George regions of northeastern New York State. Whereas the Ticonderoga Historical Society perpetuates American traditions for future generations while preserving the promoting the area's unique cultural history, making area history an integral part of community life by connecting past and present. Whereas the Ticonderoga Historical Society showcases and contributes the contributions of our region to the history of New York and the United States. And whereas the Hancock House, home of the Ticonderoga Historical Society, was a gift from native son and prominent philanthropist Horace Moses, whose success in the paper industry helped him contribute much to Ticonderoga. And in building the Hancock House, he achieved one of his lifetime ambitions, to establish a museum with a library that would make Ticonderoga a focal point for public interest in the region's nationally significant history. And whereas the Ticonderoga Historical Society recognizes Ticonderoga's long association with the military and continues to build a database containing family and cemetery information, and makes this information available online. Whereas the Ticonderoga Historical Society provides free annual events for the education and entertainment of others, to include such programs as musical and theatrical presentations, historical lectures, and community events. We're almost done with whereases. Whereas the Ticonderoga Historical Society also serves as a genealogical research center, now therefore be it resolved, I, Mark A. Wright, Supervisor of the Town of Ticonderoga, do hereby proclaim Monday, August 10th, 2022, as Ticonderoga Historical Society Day in the town of Ticonderoga, New York, this 14th day of July, 2022. Congratulations. And here's to another 125 years. None of us will be around.
I was going to say, I'm going to be around.
Speak for yourself.
Thank you very much.
I miss my face.
Okay.
Wrong.
Do you want to say something?
Oh, you put it right on the spot.
Yeah. Well, Virginia, you know, is critical to the Historical Society. About 50 years ago, Virginia was the president of the Historical Society, and this community, Brittner, lost the Hancock House. It was through her efforts and through the community, her efforts in the community, that saved the Hancock House for the region. So I want to make sure that that's part of the here too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. Unless you love board meetings, you don't have to hang around.
As my chair, she's on those days.
She's been sitting on that many, many years, decades. Thank you.
So I would like to move a resolution of congratulations to the Ticonderoga Historical Society on its 125th anniversary, declaring August 10th, 2022 as Ticonderoga Historical Society Day. And I will move that.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Thank you.
They have a great summer program here, too.
Yeah, they do.
If you haven't gone, you should.
Okay, I'm going to switch the public hearing with the presentation from Good Energy so they can give us their presentation and again, have to hang around for a board meeting. Gentlemen, ready here?
We're ready.
Everybody's going?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we really have to.
We really have to do that.
I'm not here for me.
Scare them off.
Well, thank you very much for having us, Supervisor Ryan. I appreciate the invitation. My name is Gary Fogelman, Marketing Manager for Good Energy. I'm joined by my colleague here, John Berg, also from Good Energy, who works primarily on the New York programs in New Jersey as well. Just as a quick background, we've offered this presentation. I might say that this page number 4 might be a nice overview. I'm not going to review it, but some things we'll go over in terms of who we are. But in terms of how we began with Ticonderoga back in 2018, I was contacted by a couple of, unfortunately, I guess, previous people that worked for the town because of our association with NIMET, and that is the New York Municipal Energy Program. It's a joint partnership between NICOM and the Association of Mayors, AOT. Association of Towns, sorry. We actually, I think I may have mentioned this to you, Supervisor, we actually almost lost your account because the previous supervisor had forgotten, I think, that he was working with us. And so another consultant came in and almost swooped in and took us away, but we were lucky to be contacted by Frank Lucille, and we did the deal again, and we actually undercut that consultant. So we've had a couple of power deals since then. We've also done a renewable energy certificate deal that greens up the power supply for the municipal property. But we're primarily here today to talk about community solar.
Yeah.
I know that you actually are looking at, you may have told me on a phone conversation that the town is looking into some actual generation facilities in the town. I'm not quite sure.
There are a number of solar operations, and I believe they're all private.
This might
Selling
be
directly to
nice.
National Grid, I believe.
Yeah, but then we'll go through that real quick, just how it might be applicable for your accounts.
Okay.
This might be a nice complement to that. I don't think it's necessarily the time, but we do also, among the many services we provide, and something we've been very active in New York, is something called community choice aggregation. I'll only talk about it if you'd like. We'd certainly be available for future discussions, but we're here for community
Well, the
solar.
reason I wanted you gentlemen to be here is because, we've spoken before, but I wanted the board to hear, what you guys offer in terms of getting us reduced energy through, instead of, directly going through National Grid.
Right.
Good.
Well, if you were to turn, this will be my last page, and then I'll hand it over to you, John. If you go to page 3 in the presentation, this reviews a fair amount of the savings that we believe we've provided thus far. So the current contract is a 24-month contract. We estimate savings at least since April of last year to be in the neighborhood of $36,000 plus. As I'm sure you all know, the energy markets are extremely volatile the past several months. Probably the most significant catalyst for that is the Ukraine-Russia conflict, but there are other factors involved. And it is not making life easy in the energy industry, so we're here to try and help you through that. One of your actual supply contract is coming up for renewal in December, so this is a nice maybe reminder that that's coming and something to discuss offline. I'm sure we don't need to get into the nitty-gritty on that. But,
Yeah,
I'll
so-
turn it over to you, Director Solar.
Yeah, so back when we executed this last procurement, it was a 2-year deal, December 20 to December 22 on a fixed price. The rate was actually very advantageous at the time, 4.98 cents for your supply. So instead of National Grid serving your supply, you went with the supplier that we had selected, Mid-American. The pricing was very competitive at the time. For a 1-year budget, that would put your budget at around $56,964 for the year based on your actual usage. Actual usage is just over 1 million kilowatt hours per year. So we ran an analysis, and it seems a little bit odd. we only benchmarked the savings from April of 21, and that's because National Grid has very good published rates of their prices to compare starting in April of 21. So when we first spoke, Supervisor, we went 1 year backwards to April. It's been about 3 years, or 3 months since we last kind of did the analysis, so we pushed it out another 3 months. So in a 15-month period of April 21 through June 22, you did save about $36,000, as Gary had mentioned. Your budget rate over that same period with National Grid would have been $107,000. So it's pretty considerable savings. It's a little bit less than a third, which is pretty good. The challenge ultimately is the chart that we put in there on the left illustrates that earlier this year there was a significant run-up due to some domestic issues, but predominantly the crisis and engagement that's going on in Ukraine right now, as Gary had also mentioned. So you can see that chart, this is natural gas, right? A 1-year strip, as they call it, for future natural gas prices, ballooned really to a point probably about 2-3 months ago that was almost back to the 2008 levels, the crisis back in 2008. Subsequently, the market has pulled off quite substantially. So I think that the market represents a really good opportunity at this point for us to kind of get our toe back in the water, take a look at the top, say, 3 or 4 competitive suppliers in the marketplace, get you some indicative numbers so you can understand what your budget will be for 2023, and then you can make that right buying decision, based on that criteria. So it's really kind of a wait and see game. I think the market will continue to come off, and we'll keep you abreast of where that's going, maybe on a, like every 2 weeks or 3 months, or excuse me, a 30-day basis, just so you have a sense of where it's going. But that will drive your budgetary considerations for 2023. I'm going to stop there for a second. That's kind of procurement. Now, you are enabled with us. You have a contract with Mid-American. You don't pay Good Energy. Actually, Good Energy gets paid directly through the supply contract. That's a very prevalent model, what we call the broker versus supplier relationship in this industry. So your supplier is Mid-American. We're kind of your broker consultant, advising you on timing, who are the good suppliers in the marketplace, and help negotiate the contracts. And then we monitor your savings over the course of that contract, as we're doing here today, to make sure that you're getting, 1, the right fixed price for the duration of that deal, and 2, that you're realizing the savings and the budgetary needs that you have. So that's kind of the procurement. The other piece that we, and we're going to jump past slide 4 again. I'll stop real quick on it. I know Gary touched on it. It's really just for informational purposes. Good Energy in a nutshell does municipal procurement like we do here today, natural gas and electricity for municipal loads. We run a bunch of community choice aggregation programs, which I'm not sure if you've ever heard of, like an opt-out program, where a municipality like yourselves would put in an ordinance, a resolution to start a program where every resident would be in procurement for energy unless they opted out of the program. So that's very prevalent. We do a lot of that in Illinois, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey. We serve over 3 million customers currently, which is over 1% of the population. And we also have about 400 public entities that we work with throughout those states. So that's kind of what we do. We also do commercial, industrial applications as well, but we're very, very entrenched in the government space. Page 5, we have a solar offering, and we talked briefly about it, Supervisor. There's a lot of solar developers in the space that have projects that are cited by utility. So if you have a solar product in National Grid, doesn't matter what town it's in, you can serve a customer that's all the way across the county, if you will, as long as you're in that same utility zone. So if a product is cited in National Grid, or say NICEC, for instance, or Con Edison, as long as you're in that same zone, you can actually apply for and get the discounts that are applicable to what they call community solar projects. So that product's not even here, it's not on your property, it's not up on the roof, you don't have to pay for it. It's a subscription-based product offering only. The market is really set by NYSERDA, so the New York State Energy Research Development Authority takes the offtake from all the products that are getting built, aggregates them up, and then they create a value stream where they can give discounts back to customers like yourself. So they bundle up the solutions, they sell off the racks, the green component, right? They get some federal subsidies and some state subsidies to do the projects, and then a benefit goes back to consumers like yourself. It's a 5% discount to your utility bills. And it represents, it's not completely correlated to your utility bill, right, to your national grid overall bill, but it's close. So it's essentially like saying you're getting a 5% discount for really just signing like a 5 or 10 year deal. So the key is there are term limits. Some of them are 5, some of them are 15. Good credit customers like yourselves, municipal loads, you're not going anywhere. You can oftentimes get those term limits down. So it's a nice home for projects in the area. Like I said, there's no, it's not an operating expense. It's really, and it's not a procurement. You're just reducing an operating expense that already exists. A lot of folks, like municipalities and counties, they enter into these types of arrangements without going to procurement because it's not a budgetary line item, right? It's something that you're getting a reduction to. And the offerings are very similar throughout the marketplace. If we had to go to bid, we can actually help you take it to bid. So if that was one of the requirements that you want to bid out 3 product developers in the marketplace and see what value is out there, we could do that as well. Sometimes we don't. A lot of folks like counties will say, you know what, we don't need to do that, let's just sign up. Their most key consideration typically is what's the term length of that contract. Yeah. We're going to skip 6 and we'll go on to 7, so we leave more time for these questions. So we took a look at what that opportunity might represent for the town of Ticonderoga. Given that you use 1.1 million kilowatt hours per year, the current, what they call the value stack is ranging from 10 to 11 cents per kilowatt hour. It's kind of like an all-in bill, so almost equivalent to what your supply and your distribution charges are today. You're going to see a 5% discount for entering into that solar arrangement, which is just over $6,000 a year. So on a 10-year net basis, it's a potential revenue to the town of $63,000. So it's a neat little opportunity, very little work to get it done. We do all the legwork in vetting the different offers in the marketplace. Once you're enrolled, it takes about probably 3 to 6 months to actually realize those savings because there's products that come online all the time in the marketplace. So what we try to do is align our end-use accounts, our customers, with the products as they're coming online. We've seen products come online in 1 month, and we've seen them come on in 6 to 9 months. So it really depends on what the queue of products looks like with NYSERDA. But suffice to say, once you sign up, potentially, over a 10-year period, it's just additional reduction in your operating expenses. And it's going to be on. I actually do a bill example here on page 8. It's all on bill, so you don't have a separate bill from a solar provider. The industry really, a couple of years ago, had a lot of problems with billing issues. So you had a third-party solar provider that was billing you directly. One, the bills weren't right half the time. You weren't getting the discounts that you were supposed to. Sometimes the bills weren't rendered timely. Now, the marketplace has moved to that all of the credits go right on your bill with the utility. So National Grid, even though you may be with Mid-American for your supply, National Grid will give you the solar discounts right on your distribution bill. Yeah, so nothing will change there. And the solar aspect to it, you don't change providers, National Grid still services your wires. Again, there's no installation on your property. It's all remote, what they call satellite installations. And that was really it. We kind of wanted to leave room for questions for the board. It's a kind of, the solar piece is kind of a neat new opportunity in the marketplace. And, the procurement is something that you'd want to take a look at. Clearly, you could do nothing. You could just go back to the utility and say, you know what, we don't want to be with a third-party supplier. Let's just default back to National Grid. The challenge with the utilities' default rates is they're a variable rate as well. So as the market prices increase, your utility price with National Grid will just continue to go up. And likewise, if the market comes down, it comes back down. So in order to create some level of budget certainty, we recommend that you move to another third-party supplier or stay with Mid-American. And I guess with your consent and approval, we can go out and pay the marketplace to 2 or 3 or 4 of the best suppliers and get you some notional pricing, if that makes sense. What does it take, like a week?
Yeah, quite a few accounts from where it costs them like 50 or so.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe a bit longer.
2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah. It also depends on, we talked about this, in the past, we've only worked with a fixed price contract.
Mm-hmm.
So all in fixed price, the rate doesn't change for the duration of the contract. We're now starting to look at different options because the market is just so volatile.
Yeah.
So it's something to discuss.
Yeah, we are putting some folks, even smaller accounts, into like a half fixed, half variable type product. That way you get the benefit of fixing some of your budget, and then if the market continues to fall, you get the benefit of those lower prices that layer on top of your fixed price.
Where do you see us in that? Some 1 million kilowatt hours?
Yeah, you could do it. I think the LFBI product we call a load following block and index product goes all the way down to 1 million kilowatt hours. And we have 2 really credible suppliers that offer it today. Actually 3, right? Constellation, Engie, and Direct Energy. They're the 3 largest suppliers in the marketplace. Not that larger is always better, but financially they seem to be the long-standing suppliers in the marketplace. And I haven't worked with Direct actually in the past life for about 15 years.
The town was with Constellation for many years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
And
know-
you're with Mid-America now, I believe, yeah, so okay.
We moved from them to them.
Because they pay a better deal.
Better price.
The other benefit to the load following block index is once, hopefully if the rates do drop, and we've got that particular block that you've already purchased, if the price is right, you can then lock in that price in the low rate. The 2 prices get blended for the duration of the contractor.
Yeah.
So it does provide flexibility more than anything.
Bob's questions?
So when you say sign up for the solar stuff, who are you actually signing up with?
So there's a handful of product developers in the marketplace. We're working with what you call like an aggregator. So there's aggregators that come in and they commit to a certain amount of loads to the product developers. What ends up happening is a lot of the products don't get completed. They get started, right? They go into the interconnection queue, they file for their applications. But if they can't get the end users to take their energy in advance, they don't get the financing to complete the project. So you see a lot of the products come in, they stop work, and then a new one pops up. So these aggregators come in and they aggregate multiple products and make commitments financially to take that energy, right? So that's who we work with, is one of the largest aggregators in the space. And they usually have a pipeline of load. The biggest pipeline they have is the National Grid zone. So the good news is there's lots of products coming online in the National Grid. That's what I say. There could be product around the corner. In a month from now, you could be seeing bill credits. I would say a realistic time frame is probably 6 months. So the time you can sign a contract to see the first bill credits on the bill, about 6 months. And typically the term ranges anywhere from 5 to 15 years. We've been working with them to get the terms down to 5, if we can, for good loads like municipal loads, because it's just a great anchor tenant to have, right? Yeah, they're a little bit more nervous about like commercial type loads, because they don't know if they're going to be in business in 2 years. Last time I checked, we're kind of in the business of government here in the U.S., so I don't think anything's going to change anytime soon.
So you're offering, paying the, is that a no obligation kind of thing, or what?
Yeah, and I would just think about like a budget number, right? I mean, it's definitely unrealistic to think that you're going to get anywhere near a 5-cent price for your actual procurement. It's just those markets are gone. I think a realistic number would be if you can get in the low 7s in today's market, and maybe even as Gary mentioned, do that kind of hybrid product, like lock half of your load and let the other half float a little bit, because I think the markets have a little bit more to give back. But then again, we don't really know because of the dynamics of what's going on overseas. And now you got the whole rumbling around, Iran and the whole nuclear program, so that's not a...
It's all
dynamic. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, look, you did great on your last contract. I mean, it's good savings to the town. Thankfully, right, that you weren't just floating, because most folks, I wouldn't say most, but a lot of folks do just float. We had a gal yesterday said, well, what if I just stay with the utility? Well, you can. I mean, it's certainly an option, but it's a variable rate, so you got to know that if the markets go up, they're going to go up, and that's kind of the trend that we've been seeing.
It would be interesting to know how Mid-American is right now.
Yeah, by the way, Mid-America is owned by Warren Buffett's holdings. Yeah, so they're a pretty stable company.
And when we request pricing, we'll request it such that you have fixed pricing, whole fixed price, and the load following block index, so you can compare.
Okay. Interesting to see.
So there may be some point in time, because the town planning board has approved 5 different solar projects in this town.
Yep.
And that's almost the limit of what National Grid can carry in this town. At some point, the town may be able to utilize them to to get in with these community farms.
Well, and the project doesn't even really need to be in the town, as long as it's within the National Grid zone.
Well, I don't foresee them being done for another year.
Could be longer, sometimes it's two,
Yeah.
3 years.
But there's something probably nice, right, to have Ticonderoga generation
Yeah,
supplying the town.
this town has been
It would
the
be
key
interesting,
place
yeah.
for
I mean,
all solar
you know,
right now.
Well, one of the upstream values ultimately is to be more involved in that product development phase, because there's more upfront monies in working with the developers. So this is an immediate hit, right? You can just sign up, there's no real work to be done, you get your 5% discount. But longer term, there should be at least consideration towards citing and developing more products in your community, right? If you can. They're a little, like you said, it's difficult, interconnection issues and working with utilities. But as you do that, you can get land lease agreements, you can start getting some of the upfront money from the product development phase that far overshadows the savings that I'm talking about today. A lot of upstream value if you get closer to that chain. But they are frustrating sometimes because there's a lot of products that come in the queue. We buy some queue pretty much on a monthly basis, and then all of a sudden they disappear. They're off.
Okay.
Yeah. And like you said, we have that other program, CCA. It's obviously a much more complex program, but it does offer benefits to the consumers. If you're ever thinking about becoming a clean energy community, which is a designation that's afforded by NYSERDA and the Department of Public Service, these types of programs, if you green them up and you put a content of renewable, it strives towards your clean energy community standards and your designations. So those are programs that we run, like I said, with all those, like I say, 3 million customers. Predominantly, that's within those residential opt-out type programs. It's a longer discussion, a lot more legwork. You have to do ordinances and resolutions, and we can certainly, as we get further along in these discussions, we can talk about that when you're ready.
We are the largest provider of CCA programs in the country, so well over 200 programs.
All right, great.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Well, thanks for letting us in your home.
Yeah, appreciate it.
It was a great write-up. You know, Gary had a body day, so.
It's a good day for a drive.
It was a good day for a drive. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job, your time, yeah.
Enjoy your public hearing.
Sorry we had to go checking.
And by the way, we do sincerely appreciate you putting us first, because we oftentimes do have to sit through those public
Yeah.
hearings.
Some of ours can go on.
We know what they're like.
We can drag on here all day.
Yeah, let's not.
Have fun.
We'll leave you to your phone.
It's a
All right,
good thing.
Thank you.
Relax up
Thank you
people.
for having us here. Have a good evening.
Even the police will.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, tonight on the schedule, we have a public hearing scheduled for unsafe buildings local law, amendment to that local law. There were some modifications, some of the changes to the local law involve section 13, which, or section 12, first of all, has a statement in there about how each violation is constituted a separate and distinct violation, and then there's an added section 13 and section 14. Section 13 provides for injunctive relief and civil penalties, and section 14 is entitled remedies not exclusive. Those additional sections are in the proposed amendment. I sent that to your packages, and it's also on the website right now. Anything you want to add to that?
Just kind of as we've been in court on a couple of them, I always keep track of things that could be better,
Yeah.
right? So if we see a gap that somebody's exploiting, then we're fixing it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you're seeing here with these two additions in these sections is the gap, talks about civil penalties and what they are and how they're,
Each day violation,
Yeah.
et cetera.
as well as relief. So I think those are good adds to the local law. So at that time, I'll open the public hearing to comment, and I do not see public, unless Heath, you would like to comment
public
Yeah.
on the law.
I am, I suppose technically public, but I am okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll give you the opportunity, I don't want you to feel neglected, you're part of the team.
So I have a question,
Yeah,
just a question on one of the things it says in here is all community buildings, so does that apply to barns? Does that apply to residential structures only?
No, community building, like this place,
This place,
Like a municipal,
the library. They are,
as an unsafe building? Okay, so it doesn't have to do with residential structures and that stuff around town?
I'm not sure I follow your question.
In other words, if there's, you know, I mean, we got codes for, you know, buildings that we know, or we tag that are, non-compliant, right? That kind of stuff, right? Does any of that fall under this? Am I not making myself clear? Apparently not. Okay, so somebody's house gets abandoned and sits there forever, right? And does that, I mean, obviously it goes through the county and it goes through stuff and it goes through, you know, potentially tax stuff, but is it also considered an unsafe building under this? Or is this only covering municipal buildings?
the definitions has the definition for building.
This deals with the scenario like we've got a fire.
Yep.
Or we've got a building that's abandoned and the doors are
Yeah.
broken and open and the
Yeah.
windows are broken and open.
Okay, so does that apply to barns? Falling down dilapidated old barns that are no longer
Any
safe?
building, yeah.
Any building, that's my question, so any building.
But I should clarify though, you gotta be a little careful if you're talking about an ag building. If the intent of your question that you're asking me is to target an ag building, you gotta be a little more careful.
An ag building, an agricultural building,
Right.
well,
It's
most
not an
barns
active farm.
are, right?
As
So,
part of an active farm operation, there's a lot of exemptions.
Okay.
okay, because I mean, if you drive around town and you look, there's a lot of buildings that are old barns. I mean, there's one pretty obvious right on Street Road, just before you get out there, it's just fallen down. It's obviously dangerous because it's cratered in. It's placed on Burgoyne Road Extension, right, on the right-hand side. That roof has collapsed.
Right.
And I don't think that's an ag barn. I mean, he uses it for storing his, you know, old whatever.
And it's not an active farm
It's
either.
not an active farm, but I just didn't know if it extended to those types of buildings as well.
A building, yep.
Okay. Well, it might be something we need to think about, maybe enforcing some of that more, because some of those things are certainly a hazard, and not only that, they're an eyesore around town as well.
Yeah, we have press codes to be a little more aggressive in that area.
Yeah. Okay, that was the only question I had.
Well, if there are no more questions from the public or anyone else, I will close the public hearing. But at this time, we have to go through the part 2 of the environmental assessment one checklist. Are you gonna bring us through that? Okay.
Yep. So I did prepare and provide to the town board, because this is an action that is subject to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECR. We don't get a lot of those before the board, mostly, you know, planning and zoning deals with those on every application. Us here, not so much, but this certainly would be an action. So I provided part 1. Obviously, since we're adopting a local law dealing with, sorry.
I was just wondering this was online, because he's looking for it.
Oh, it was in the packet, yeah.
Yes.
So I prepared a part 1 of the EAF, now I'll go through part 2. It's just a bunch of questions that we have to answer now. I mean, the reality is, this minimally relates to the environment.
That's what I noticed,
Environment.
yeah.
So, but we still have to go through this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, there's 11 questions, we'll go through them. So the question that is before the board on this question is, will the adoption of this local law have no impact, or a small impact, or a moderate to large impact when I answer these questions? And if they were moderate to large, then in, you know, certain instances, an environmental impact statement might be required. So like, for example, if a large industrial facility was being built and they were going to discharge processed water,
Right.
that might require an environmental impact statement, right? So I'll go through the questions and we'll answer them. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? So the question is it no, or small impact, or moderate to large impact? So the question again was, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations?
I don't see any.
I'm not gonna
I'd say no.
Yeah.
These aren't loaded questions.
No, I read through them before, which is why I thought. why-
Sometimes you can overthink the room.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to it. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land?
No.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
No.
Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? I'm going to ask, what is that? Well, a critical environmental area are areas of land, water, that someone has designated as critical. So the town board can designate certain areas in the town as critical environmental areas. To give you an example, the Lake George Park Commission has designated the entire Lake George Park, the actual boundary of the basin, as a critical environmental area. So any action that they review within the Adirondack Park is automatically a heightened environmental review. So we haven't. So the answer is, the question is, will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics of a CEA?
I would say no.
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway?
If only, no.
Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy?
No.
Will the proposed action impact existing public water or private water supplies?
No.
Public or private wastewater utilities?
No.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
No.
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources?
No.
Will the proposed action result in increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems?
No.
And finally, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No. So this was a required form based upon the type of action we were taking, because it's like, nothing really applied here.
Exactly. So yeah, it happens. To answer you, yes, there are certain actions that we go through. Like, for example, we haven't done them here recently, but when we kicked off the water project or we kicked off the sewer project, the other environmental assessment form is a long environmental assessment form. It's 15 pages or so.
Yeah.
And the second part of it is like 8 pages, so there's a lot more in-depth questions. But yes, anytime you're going to fund, approve, or undertake an action that could impact the environment, you have to go through this analysis. So dealing with unsafe buildings is something that could possibly impact the environment.
Sure.
So it triggers compliance with secret. Now, if we are doing parking regulations or dog control or passing a resolution to, like a lot of these, allow the engineer contracts or things like that, those aren't projects that trigger secret review. Pay bills, right? That's an action. That's actually an action to fund something. So under the funding criteria, that would be an action, but it doesn't relate to the environment.
Okay.
So it's, that's how we do this. So in the resolution I drafted, you'll see to adopt the amendments to the local law. The next move is to declare a negative declaration, which just means that the board declares that the action it's about to take will not have the potential for one or more adverse environmental impacts.
I would move that we declare a negative.
It's included in the overall resolution.
Do you want me to read this for the record?
You're not obligated to read it for the record. Board's
Because
call.
I've done a lot of whereases tonight.
Yeah.
And more whereases.
Yeah. No, the resolution I drafted lays out that we introduced the local law, held a public hearing, allowed anybody who wanted to speak.
Yeah.
We took, we have to take the buzzwords are a hard look at the environmental impacts, if any, that the board finds that the resolution is in the best, or that the local law is in the best interest of the town, and therefore adopts the local law, and asks the town clerk to file it.
Because this does resolve that the local law is adopted and effective immediately.
I'm fine.
The resolution takes effect.
We good from your end then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. That concludes.
Also, your resolution is to adopt the local law and unsafe buildings.
Yes, and I'll move that.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion? All right. None opposed, so it's carried.
Start making this.
All right. We'll begin with committee reports. First up is airport. We did meet on July 6th. The minutes are attached to the agenda. I will just give a little short synopsis. There was an update provided for the beacon in the tower and its eventual installation on the airport property. They have cited the permanent location for that, and pending FAA notification, they do have to notify the FAA. Although verbal responses from the FAA so far have been that, hey, this is no problem, but dealing with the federal government, you never know. So the paperwork will be filed. They're not going to construct anything until that paperwork comes back. They're currently looking for funding. All the funding is by private interest. There's no taxpayer funds involved in this construction or erection or of the tower or anything like that. This is all going to be privately donated funds from that group. On another note, fuel sales for the month were through the roof. Over 4,000 gallons of fuel was sold at the airport. We actually ran out and had to order some more. We are extremely competitive with the neighboring airports. We sell multiple dollars less per gallon and still make a profit on the fuel. So they all come here for fuel. We were up and running again in a couple of days after that. The next meeting is going to be August 2nd. And that's all I have from the airport. I'll move to the buildings and grounds.
Dave isn't here, so I'm not going to report for him.
Okay.
I do want to say, Tanya and everybody, the Vermont company is here today working on the tennis courts.
Oh, good.
Oh.
And they did call me, I was a little surprised, it was sort of last minute, but I went down, I talked to him today, and that was a good trip because I got some advice about what to do, because all they're doing is filling in the cracks.
Okay.
And they're blowing the debris off, but they're not power washing it. That's a different service. And they're marking 2 courts. The middle tennis court will now be marked for pickleball also, but in a different color. And we'll see how this plays out. I want to see how much complaints we're going to get from tennis players, if any. And I'd like to see the pickleball players moving from the armory and go down there. So
We still have a,
tennis court. We have the racquetball. I know the pickleball.
So you're converting 2 of the tennis courts now into pickleball courts?
They would only be temporary nets on them, on the second one, in the middle one.
That always came to the Parks Committee. Did that
Oh,
come
we
to
talked
the-
about that, it was on the,
Maybe I wasn't there,
you know,
because I didn't, I wasn't
we
there.
were talking about not putting the one court will be permanent. Because that's what
On the end.
2 nets, and then there's one more net available for the middle court. The pickleball players have brought it down there. I haven't seen any tennis players down there too. I actually haven't seen any pickleballers down there either.
There has been tennis players, because they've taken the key from my office.
What I'm going to do is go up to the police station and change the sign-in that they have and ask what they're playing, so we can have some sense of what's
I
being
believe
used.
it does.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Mine does.
Does
And I
it?
made up that form.
Did you?
That's
I
a,
have to go up and look at
that's a
it.
Parks conversation.
Yeah. But I'll go up and look at that. But it was meaningful because I talked about the next steps, because it's going to have to be resurfaced in the next couple of years, because it's really discolored. And he suggested using different colors on the outline instead of using tan, use some other color because it shows the dirt so bad. And I also discovered there's a ton of not the gypsy moss, but the sponge moss in that red maple there. So we're going to have trouble with that next year. I can see all the egg masses. Other than that, we had the ribbon cutting on Wednesday, June 29th. We had a good show. Show Up. Chamber of Commerce puts on the event. And I was happy that so many Kiwanians could be there because they not only help physically, but they also help financially. We still have a couple things to do, which is one of the 16-foot framework boards needs to be replaced. And we need a handicap ramp, and I was thinking about having one built, but with the price of lumber and everything, maybe I'm better off going in the catalog and finding something that's pre-made. So I will look into that too, to see which is the least expensive way of doing it. And there's one piece of equipment that needs to be repainted. I did do the balance beam. I'm not going to go through all of this. I do want to talk about Recreation Park because we expected that possibly Dan Woods, do I have his name correct, Tanya? Is it Dan Woods?
Yes.
Okay. He requested,
Actually, he's Woods, there's no S after his
there's no
name.
S in it, that's what I didn't know. Okay, I'll take the S off. Anyway, he's proposed taking part of the second field and developing a fourth field that could be used by the T-ballers. I did go up and look at it, there is plenty of room, but there's also a slope which would require fill and so on and so forth, and moving the fence, and I'm not quite sure what he envisions as in terms of who's going to do what. So we do need him to come to a meeting.
He's supposed to be coming in the next one.
Okay, so
Yeah,
then
he
gets
came to
a
me and I told him to go to the meeting.
Yeah, he wasn't able to make that one, so we can't move any farther than this until we get some specifics. I don't know if he's thinking of volunteer labor, if he thinks Parks and Rec is going to do it or whatever, so that's where we are now. We still have the marine monument project sitting there. It is roped off, but I have some concerns because there's an open area about 6 inches wide all the way around it. And I'm wondering what we should do. We don't know if he's going to put it here or not.
The areas was probably the end of the trenching that was done. It was
Yes, it
probably
was.
filled back in.
Yeah, but I think it needs to be filled in.
I mean, we could probably get it filled in. It's not going to affect, if you were to go forward and get approved to go forward, it's not going to affect that.
Yeah.
It's just filling in around the current concrete
Yeah.
slab. If that were the case, I think the concrete slab is even with the ground, is it not? It doesn't step up at all.
Well, I can't quite tell because you've got that gap. Probably it's supposed to be.
Just trying to think about whether the tape would have to remain around it if the,
The tape is
Trench is
white
filled.
too. I think it should be another color. So,
yeah, that was different.
Yeah.
It's usually yellow.
But
Maybe we can, maybe I can talk to Sal and see if they can just bring a few wheelbarrows and fill
If we
it.
can get it filled, it's our liability. Somebody gets
that's
there,
my
should-
concern. The thing is that we were promised that this was not going to cost us anything. Mine was
At
in.
this point,
Yeah,
we
I know.
don't need
I know.
liability.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Sal and just have his, ask if his guys can just fill in some dirt around the trench.
We can level it to it, so.
Yeah,
Go
it
up.
won't impact future
Take it
installment.
It can be used for something else too, possibly if something else wanted to go in there and it was approved, that would do it.
Maybe a special seating area for fireworks. VIP seating.
VIP seating.
Slabs.
Yeah. And we could, never mind.
All right, I'll check.
I won't go there. And Mount Hope Cemetery needed some work, but I believe Dave is taking care of that one. The pilings looks like it's falling apart. And he's still trying to find somebody to come in and do the cornerstones and all the other work that needs to be done. I have to say, when I visited out there recently to talk to Grant, that I noticed the cemetery is loaded with stuff that I don't think should be there. It just makes more work for the.
You're talking about the little
all the-
solar lights and
And
flowers.
the little twirly things and
yeah,
the plants and
twirly gates.
everything. And they went through the rules again, and they did say there was a limit to things that go on there, but in terms of the amount of work it creates for whoever is maintaining the cemetery, I think it's inappropriate. And I think maybe an inquiry should be made of Valley View and also of St. Mary's Cemetery and see what their policy is, and I think ours should match. And then it needs to be enforced.
Well, you have a cemetery board.
I go to the meetings,
Yeah.
and they have, it is in their lots, but it's not, nothing is happening in terms of removing anything that goes on there. In fact, I was up there the other day and I could see somebody was putting more stuff on my grave, and I just went, oh gosh.
So since you're on the cemetery board, you want to just let them know?
Well, I'm not a voting member, I just.
No,
attend
but can you,
meetings.
recommend that they can go out to the
I
other
will.
cemeteries and?
Yeah,
get their
okay, I'll
feedback?
ask them to do that, yes, okay, I'll do that. And I have, we have begun working on policies, and I have typed up what the group talked about, and Nancy had brought in some handouts, so I just wanted you to see, take a look at it. Don't look at it now because you don't have time, but if there's anything in here you don't agree with, or you think something should be added, we've only gotten into Veterans Park and Bicentennial Park, there's a lot more to go.
Okay.
And we'll go on from there.
Can you send this electronically?
Yes, it's, I'll say. And I did realize after I got done typing it today, there's nothing in there about the project process of using the Bicentennial Park, that they have to go to the town clerk's office, so I've added it all already. And I also want to ask this question, in terms of alcohol use or smoking, do we have town laws? Anything, what's on the
Smoking,
books?
yes.
I think there's a smoking.
There's a smoking law.
For what, those specific?
Town properties.
All town properties?
I
Okay.
believe it is all town properties except for, well, I'd have to look it up again. I think it's all town properties. I think we did it for the beach and Bicentennial Park first, and then I think we amended it to include all town properties.
I think there's signs up.
Alcohol is only allowed by the alcohol permit process, that they have to come to the
And I
office.
remember that wasn't specific either. Okay, so somehow or other we need to work that into what we've come up with here, so. Then we'll meet again on July 19th, this next week, what we got.
Right, thank you. Economic development, there was no meeting in June due to conflicts with committee members on availability. However, we continue working on the DRI effort, currently gathering a list of town projects that can be added to DRI, green space, building renovations, park additions, trail additions, things like that. So we're continuing to do that. We're also looking at Restore New York. That initiative came out yesterday, as well as the DRI initiative. Restore New York can be used to get funding for like a burned out building, kind of removed. Unfortunately, there's a lot of restrictions on it. I went through the webinar yesterday, and you can't pick and choose structures that are geographically separated, which is unfortunate because we have several geographically separated structures. You can pick one, or if you have several structures that are located one next to one another,
Well,
you can
two.
You can select, yeah. Well, one of those is underway now. So if there's like two or more that are grouped together, continuous, and you can do that. So I was a little disappointed with that, but also that Restore New York, you get more points if you're what's called a distressed community. Believe it or not, you do not meet that requirement.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought we were distressed.
So it doesn't mean that you can't apply, but the most we could probably do is apply for one minor project and one major project. The EDC group will be looking at that, and the DRI group will be looking at that. They're all the same group. They're all the same people, pretty much. But
Can you apply for both?
yes, you can. Yes.
But the chances are you probably wouldn't get both.
Who knows?
Who knows?
You know who you're
Yeah.
competing with yet.
You won't get them if you don't apply.
Yeah.
So what's the criteria for distressed?
They have like 8 points, and I didn't read them all, and I can't remember them all, but there's like 8 points for the different points for. But anyway, the next meeting of that committee is going to be July 20th. With that, I'll go to Highway Transfer Station. I think Tom is going to read what Dave has.
Yeah, David, ask me to do that. I'm just gonna try to highlight as quick as I can. On the highway, Mitch reported that one of the things is how they sent trucks to help county grind roads and also Walmart parking lot. We had 8,500 ton milling that we could use for repair our own roads, which is a substantial saving, I think, for the town. They're looking to start paving early July, so I don't think they've started yet. We're close to it. And the paperwork has been provided, signed to be able to start working on St. Clair and Grove Street. And they're looking at other easements for alternatives and all that. No resolutions passed.
Okay.
And that's the highlights.
Municipal facility.
No, we didn't have a meeting this past month due to conflicts with a number of folks. So the next scheduled meeting will be at our regular scheduled time this month.
And you received that email I sent you about the question from the fire department.
You did?
Yeah.
You did, yeah.
Interesting. I don't know if the timing is going to work out, but the fire department had said to me, we were lining up for the parade, hey, if we have a new home somewhere, would the town want to get the property back that the fire department currently has? that information. So, but I mean, the timing here is a little wild, so.
Yeah, when I saw that, we'll take it up and have a discussion at the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Public safety?
Again, I have days meetings and folks here. There's no public comment. The chief went over the number report, but you have an attachment to that. I'm not going to read that. Joyce had a concern over lifeguards and staff. I think that's been
That's in work.
pretty much in order to pretty much sit out there. At least you have a plan going forward, but what's the thing? I don't know where we stand on town board and Hannah Beach. Still out there.
That's continuing, those discussions are continuing. I was,
Just back with
yeah. Putnam's all in favor. I was talking to Daryl the other day on a different matter, discussed that. We're actually going to be going to a meeting in August with the Black Point Civic Association. Invited us both to be there to answer some of their questions. And so that's one of the updates that we'll be given them. And we're not looking for a lot of authority, we're just looking for the authority for our local police to deal with any health issues. If there's an emergency, it's all hands on deck anyway, so. We're not trying to steal any thunder from the sheriff's department there.
Also, Joyce had a comment on parking town law regarding parking, so where that stands.
I think maybe it's parking lot, because,
I still think paperwork.
yeah. I have to say that I have to take care of one of the things, so there was a black vehicle over here in this parking lot with no plates or anything. I said, it's gone.
It's gone, yeah.
So he knew what block to, he was gonna follow through on it.
Okay.
There was a comment on speed limit, Ross Kelly brought up something should be done regarding the speed limit around the windshield. Like to should reduce speed or flashing lights. Dave said he'd bring it up to the next highway meeting. Well, that's a state highway, I would assume we have to follow the state.
We have requested twice now
And done.
to have that speed limit dropped, and the state, they have to do a survey, like we're still doing one right now for Kennedy Drive. Takes over a year for that process to go through, and we've done that one twice, and you have to wait 3 years, I think 3 years in between each request. They're not gonna drop it, we've already asked
So
twice,
it's killed.
but doesn't mean you can't ever do it again.
Go through the process.
Yeah, well, it is scary, especially if you're doing things like coming down Alexandria and trying to get on 90.
Yeah.
Why there isn't more accidents there, I have no idea. And that's it.
One note on public safety, the 3 needle kiosks were returned to Alliance for Positive Health in Plattsburgh. That leaves 1 remaining at the police department, so the other's been returned.
There's other kiosks on town. Stores have
Okay, Public Works, minutes from the June 28th meeting are attached. If there's any questions, I will add here that Fort Ticonderoga Association has approached the town regarding municipality taking over the water line that goes from the sewer plant to Fort Ticonderoga. It's a private line they own. Some concern that Derek and I have of that is a portion of that line is extremely old. Some of it has been replaced, but there's a section that's extremely old. And in need of replacement. And as I explained to the association, there has to be some benefit to the town before we would take that over. I'm not quite sure what that would be at this point.
Does that go all the way to Fort?
Yeah. It was put in like in 1903, 1920, I can't remember what Derek said. It's old. I told the association, we're willing to listen to options and ask them, if you know where there's available funding for such a thing, feel free to let us know. But we already have multiple grants that have matching obligations, and we're not looking for another water project. But I'm not going to say no, but we'll listen. But it's got to be a benefit to the town. So there's more to come on that. So we'll see how that transpires.
It's not just the Fort on that one, though, is it?
No, it is not.
Just
There
not 10
are
houses.
there are approximately, I believe, 6 to 7 private residences on that.
Plus the 4
It's
yes.
all dealing with.
In addition to that, we are expecting to install the additional fire hydrant in the Baldwin Road area sometime mid-August. That was both in response to residents coming forward with the committee being level. We have the hydrant, and we're checking availability of parts now, and Derek will do that scheduling. Near future, get this done sometime in August. And for that, I have 4 resolutions. The first one here is a resolution to authorize the supervisor to approve amendment number 1 for AES project number 5052. This is the phosphorus removal at the treatment plant. EFC has requested that their mandatory term and conditions be incorporated into the agreement, so it's a zero-cost amendment. It's just incorporating their T&C into the agreement. And any motion on that?
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. I have a resolution to create a new bill file in Water District 6, Village District for Sahowski Little and Company LLC to be charged 1 full EDU for the 10 Cottage Road property. A motion.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. A resolution to create a new bill file in Sewer District 7, Delano Point, Savosky Little and Company LLC, be charged 1 full EDU for the 10 Cottage Road property.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, carried. And a resolution to deactivate the account for 1170 New York State Route 9N in the billing system, as it has been combined with 1172 New York State Route 9N.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Carried. And that's all I have for Public Works. Youth?
We met, the commission met yesterday, and we thought it was going to be really tough, but fortunately, we had new people apply for positions, so
Yeah.
what seemed really terrible was not
That's good.
really terrible. And some of the local commission who are really going to be a benefit to the program. Some of them are interested in just the summer program, some are interested in both.
That's what I understand.
And the ones that are interested in both were those of us interviewing, because that's where there's a very strong need to get our after-school program going again. So we interviewed Justin Coleman, Evan, who couldn't read his writing, Evan Ortiz, and Olivia Powers, and Emily Powers has already worked for the town, and Sean did interview her via phone. And I make the motion. Wake me up. That we offer employment to them for a part-time, no benefits activity attendance. The hourly rate of $13.51. And it's interesting to me that we have so many boys in line. That's good.
We never did.
Huh?
We never used to.
That's what I was thinking. So,
Well, I shouldn't say never. I saw them for 6 years.
Infrequently.
Yeah. So you brought that, Joyce?
yes, I did.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
And we hope it works out well. I was saying as I came in this morning at 9 o'clock, I could hear the happy voices coming up the street from the armory, because they carry through the woods and comes right up to my house, and they were just so excited, just sort of
That's great.
rooting and howling.
That's great. I can still hear them at the playground.
Yeah.
All right, you know, and this was the seniors.
Yeah, the seniors had their second meeting since COVID, June 29th at 1 o'clock. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend because I was in the mandatory safety class here, so I had to beg off. But they did have a guest speaker who was Chrissy Lurkes from the Office of the Aging. She had a couple of good points that probably needs to be mentioned here, is that if you contact the HEAP at the Office of the Aging, or HEAP, you may be eligible for window air conditioners to be installed. during the summer for certain residents, so if anybody is interested on that, you need to contact the Office of the Aging or HEAP and apply for that. They're also having an art class through the Creative Arts and Aging program. That's going to be starting fairly soon. They don't have a date on that yet, and they can do it on Zoom as well. The Office of the Aging is also giving out coupons for the farmer's market. A person must have a monthly income of less than $2,100, and the coupon is for $25 to get fresh fruit and vegetables, and you can get that also through the Office of the Aging through Chrissy Murphy. So those are out there and available. As is transportation to and from medical appointments, and legal services are also provided by the Office of the Aging. So those services are available to seniors if they're not aware of it. And if anybody has any other questions, they can certainly call the office, which that number is 518-873-3695. And then they just went over their normal activities. They are looking to get a schedule together, people that are interested, members that are interested for the Lake George Steamboat Cruise, and they're going to be putting up a raffle coming up. And so that's a busy time for the seniors. And the next meeting will be their normal time at 1 o'clock, and it's located at the Armory. And they still are looking for additional members. Again, the cost is only $10 a year for seniors. I think it's anybody 55 and up, if I'm not mistaken. So they're looking for members if anybody's interested to join. That's it.
Thank you. I really have no health insurance update other than to say that new rates should be coming out anytime now, according to contract negotiations. I have no updates for cable. We have one announcement here from Charter. This little literal service notice that on or around July 11th, 2022, Spectrum Northeast LLC will launch VME satellite feed on SPP Latino View on channel 229 or 882 on the channel 9 on the Stringer community. Okay. Some financial resolutions. We have to create some additional lines for the AUD for the CPA for the New York State Low-Income Housing Water Assistance Program. So resolution authorizing the creation of new accounts A.0200.020, PN.901, and A.8210.400. These are cash cemetery and water wastewater contractual expenses. And someone
I'll move it.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. Resolution authorizing the repayment to Greene County Bank via wire transfer. That is the amount of $5,024,707.95. This is the Ticonderoga Clean Water Project repaid via that wire transfer to Green Mountain Bank for project funding that was loaned at the beginning of the project.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution authorizing the following budget transfers. First set here is under budget. These are for under budgeted general accounts for contingency. In the amount of $2,922.57 for the items you see there: credit card fees, airport credit card fees, police constable, vacation buyback, joint plan board attorney, and refuse and garbage HSA. The next section is under budgeted highway account, their contingency, the amount of $632.20 for machinery, highway, lubricants. See, by the way, the ending balances there, the contingency funds. Next group is, again, under budgeted general accounts, contingency, in the amount of $2,031.60 for water overtime, water longevity, and water department sewer bills. And that's it for that section.
What's water longevity?
I asked that same question. That is the bonus that they get for length of service. Good question. So So I need a motion on that.
So,
Go ahead, Grace.
second. Give us the, you
Yeah,
move it,
yeah,
I'll
switch it
second.
up, switch it
Yeah, okay.
First and Joyce seconded.
Second, first.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. A resolution authorizing the following budget adjustments. Highway education and training, funding account by general fund balance to cover financial reimbursement in the amount of $105.60. Wastewater contractual in the amount of $3,098.14. Justice general employee benefits in the amount of $8,646.18. Justice general supplies in the amount of $786.31. And sewer general repairs and maintenance in the amount of $7,500. And I will make a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution authorizing the following interfund transfer. This is to transfer funds from the general to the Eagle Lake Water Project in the amount of $8,155.75. I'll move that just to shake it up.
I'll second.
I'm sure John.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. A resolution authorizing the following inter-fund loans. These are transferring funds from Highway to Veterans Road Culvert Bridge Project until the funding is received. By the way, this project will be starting in a couple of weeks. I'll have a schedule to provide to everyone. And I'll be notifying emergency services and highway and water so that they know what's going on. Anyway, this is in the amount of $1,859.30. Additional one from Central Water to project for Ellis lead service line replacement in the amount of $24,406.54. Transfer of funds from Central to the water meter project in the amount of $488.75. And transfer of funds from General to Airport Apron project in the amount of $2,444.45. And that was the last one in actually. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any questions, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. That's all I have for financial resolutions. I do have a resolution here to authorize Patty Osier, sole assessor, to attend the New York State Assessors Association Fall Conference in Lake George, New York, from September 18th to 21st, at a total cost of $762.60, with funds coming from the assessor's training budget line.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. A resolution to accept and correct the minutes of the regular town board meeting of June 9th, 2022, and the finance meeting of June 23rd, 2022.
So,
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution to pay the abstract.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. And a resolution to accept the supervisor's report as submitted.
So moved.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. That's all we have on the agenda. Tanya, do you have anything for us tonight?
No.
Okay. Counselor? We can?
We can do that later in a quick executive if you want.
Okay.
It's up to you.
We don't have anything else for tonight.
Pretty fast.
Okay, action.
There's no public here, so I guess we will not have any public comment unless Heath, you would like to comment on something.
I mean, every summer I have a pet peeve which is actually associated with the Hague Road, which is why I understand, the issues. For the last 2-3 years, we've been trying to figure out a way on how to get people to stop whizzing through the traffic circle at 55 miles an hour coming from Hague.
Yeah.
And we've come up with several ideas. Unfortunately, I was told sniper fire is not good, and I was told that,
Especially now.
I was told that we can't even use removable
Speed bumps?
speed bumps, thank you, because it's a different road. So I was just curious if, I know manpower is an issue, but if it was possible just to increase a presence on that little, sort of like little parking area right next to Century 21.
Yeah.
Just for the summer, just to see if we can get people just to slow down.
You bring it up to public safety.
A little bit.
Yeah, that's
Interestingly enough, there is a project, one of the projects in DRI is to put traffic islands, you know where the painted yellow lines are?
that goes back to the Alon.
It goes back to an Alon proposal in one of their original studies, and I have put it in the DRA effort, and that would be to slow traffic, and also, I don't know if you've ever seen anybody do this, but they'll go to Hague and they won't go around the monument, they'll just take the left side of the monument,
Yeah.
like it's a regular road. That would eliminate those kind of things for public safety. It would slow traffic down for crosswalks, and it would slow traffic down for just negotiating the monument. But yeah, we'll take your
Yeah,
They don't know how to treat it as a traffic circle.
No.
Especially when they don't know how to treat it as a traffic circle.
Right.
Yeah, which is interesting because traffic circles are almost everywhere now.
Yeah.
If you've got the space, they
But ours
substitute
looks
the need for a
different.
traffic
It
light.
looks different, so that's the
So
problem.
my father drove through there like he wanted.
Yeah.
I look out and see him coming.
yeah. If you ever sit there and watch, you can count the number of times somebody almost gets T-boned.
Yeah.
During the course of
Yeah.
just an hour.
And because they don't know how to operate, they don't know that people in the traffic circle have a right of way.
Is there a portable police sign? Has that ever been put out there to see if that makes any difference?
I don't know. I don't
They
think
move it around, I don't know where it presently is.
Go south.
it was on Black Point Road. I don't know if it's still there.
No, it's not there anymore.
At one point, they did put it there, you mean the speed limit?
Yeah.
The mobile
Yeah, yeah,
speed
yeah.
limit.
Trailer.
The trailer has been there before. I don't know if it had an effect or not. But I think it's a combination of just people not knowing how to treat a traffic circle, that yield sign means stop when somebody's in the center.
At least they would slow down enough to coming in.
I also know that people coming in from Hague, that the speed drops to 30 pretty far in advance, but
Right.
they don't.
Right, I know, that's right. That's what I'm thinking. If that's a speed sign out there, might help certainly.
Well,
during the
you know,
summer.
they have the,
Virgins does.
yeah.
Virgins has that sign as you enter the downhill slope.
Oh, I'm very aware of that sign.
Hague
Well,
had
I thought we did
Yeah,
it for
that was
Virgins.
heavily operated.
Hague had that problem by the Hague dock. They put that sign there that hits you and tells you how fast you're going. Those were very effective.
I think
We had
they
one,
are.
they put one of those.
They're gonna,
on
I think,
mine.
one Virgins, I'm gonna say that.
They go by my house at 100, 150 all the time. There's a motorcycle at 6:45 every morning, I'll hear it. And he's by the house. Now, I'm a half mile straight. And it's just like that. Every morning.
Yeah, because you've got that straightaway, so they
I
just
got the
open it
only
up.
passing straightaway from Ticonderoga.
We can adjourn for legal advice.
Be careful going on your driveway.
Oh, you better look down and both
Oh,
ways.
yes, I'm good, before we got there, but yeah, forms.
Is there anything else?
I have a quick announcement for those that may not know. There is a new business moving into town, which you may have heard of. They're moving into the Libby's building, and it's Ledge Hill Brewing. He's going to put a brew pub and moving from Westport, Ledge Hill Brewing, and he's moving from Westport to Ticonderoga.
Make sure they get in touch with Derek as soon as possible.
I've already pointed in that direction.
Yeah, there are, not insurmountable, but there are sewer requirements with breweries.
Yes, there are, and I've told him to do that, and I think he's met with Dave as well, Burrows, about certain things and some things like that, so
Yeah.
I think it's moving on, but I think it's a benefit to the town to have something like that in here.
Just curious, did they say why they're moving here?
Has something to do with some marital issues, I
Oh,
think,
okay.
and the fact that the building he's in, I think, might be is owned by his soon-to-be ex-wife, and I think there's an eviction notice and there's something.
God, I didn't know if there was some economic thing that maybe we could learn from.
No,
I already know more than I need to do.
exactly, so anyway, so that's what I know, I didn't ask a lot of questions.
So they're actually,
No more, right?
they are actually going to be brewing there.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
yeah, they're getting a structural guy in to make sure that the floor can withstand the weight of the vats and all that kind of stuff, and so they're.
Effective opening?
Signed the lease and picked up his deposit today, so he's moving in, he's starting to lease.
Cross the Ts and that, yeah.
Yeah.
How big of a system, you know?
I want to say it's three vats that he's making, and they're, what he said, they were 46 wide, I don't know, they hold, I forget how much. Pretty good size, I mean, it's not huge, but pretty good size operation.
We welcome him here.
Yeah.
Distillery, you said, no,
No, Brewery.
Microbrewery.
Brew pub, so he's, apparently he's gonna have coffee in the morning and things like that, and then he's gonna have some, a bar and, sandwiches and, beer food, or pub food and that kind of stuff, so. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, that brewery's doing
they
great.
can get loaded between Crown Point here.
That brewery's
If there's nothing else, we are adjourned.
doing, use it twice a week.
The
Just for
distillery.
time's benefit, that would be 1922 hours.
One more thing.